Let we set it on fire. A little more calypso, forget the funk and the disco. A little more limbo, a little more shango. Climb the greasy pole, and we don't dance from the maypole.
The food fair offers quality foods at affordable prices. Now, with our improved web store, you can make all your purchases from the comfort of your home. It's so simple, easy to log in and navigate, safe and secure transactions, and a quick checkout. All your grocery needs at your fingertips. Convenient and reliable. Food fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
A message by the Grenada Distillers Limited.
You want a hand sanitizer to do 3 things: kill germs, be gentle, and to go where you go. You can get all of that in our hand sanitizer. Hard on germs, gentle on hands, affordable. Remember, hand sanitizers contain alcohol. Keep away from heat and flames and avoid contact with eyes. Available at retailers island-wide.
A message by the Grenada Distillers Limited.
Hey man, Well, man, that's you making that trip. Why doing all this more?
Things tight since COVID, you know. And Christmas coming, the toys to build, and my house and my car to repair, and the wife go and chill with and what you want me to do?
I'm expecting to do all that with more.
But what you want me to do?
Why don't go down my communal? You don't have to pay them until January. They have 20,000 in giving away, and the interest rate low.
And listen to me, I try them orders and them never look good. Who they want them on?
Well, watch, like you have more than your ass. Choose your loan at communal, giving you the money for what you want to do. It's a loan for you.
You know what? I'll get them a little try.
Listen, where you going on this mud? You don't need it. Leave the mud, man. When you go down there, the rate's low. Low.
Kindly greasy pole, and we don't dance from the maypole.
Good evening once again, folks, and welcome to OUI Culture, the new norm for Friday evenings in Grenada and the rest of the world, actually, because everybody looks at us everywhere you go. I'm really excited tonight because we're starting our independence programs. Tonight is the first of 2, I hope, but of course, you never know. And I have with us our very special guest, Mrs. Gloria Payne Banfield. You know, when it comes to independence and certain aspects of our history, I don't think we can find anyone more fitting to have that discussion with than Mrs. Banfield. So, Mrs. Banfield, good evening and welcome again to OUI Culture.
Good evening, Godfrey, and good evening, Scholar, Reece, and my good friend Livingston. And good evening also to all the listeners and viewers.
Yes, indeed. So let me introduce the team. Now, I am going to introduce people first that look, nationalistic. So I'll go with Finley first. Finley, how are you going?
Not bad. No. That is a yellow thing you're doing over your back. No. Don't come with that.
Man, I've read, you know.
Livingston just throw up his yellow thing over his shoulder.
I see. No. I see.
I don't know Congo, you have to stop.
No. I see Livingston have a thing with Caraloo in the back there. Livingston, Caraloo you have in the back there?
No, that's not Caraloo.
That's not Caraloo.
Oh,
I thought
it was Caraloo.
Caraloo inside house.
Well, let me tell you something. Doctors know the funny things, you know. When people at with your intellectual levels, you can't put anything past this kind of balance, you know what I mean? But Finley, I like that. That's a bad mind you have there.
Yeah. You pull it out from the bag. I mean, this is independence dashiki. You call that.
That's what I'm talking about.
So, yeah. So I'm not going in this Jersey kind of thing. I'm going right back to the roots of the thing because
it's not Jersey with staff over it.
Yeah. It's Jersey with staff over it. Time for that. So I'm going rootsy. So this is my independence dashiki.
All right, fair enough. Don't worry.
I am ready for the discussion. Independence to me is always an interesting discussion, and of course we have the guru of independence, the lady who knows everything about flag and how you should do flag and act to independence and so on. So I am just whetting my appetite, and I'm with you.
Yes, indeed, and of course, Reece.
Yes.
But you're Jazzy missing a color, man.
I find the sleeve a little short.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the sleeves go with the territory.
Yeah, but like Scholar, I pull that one out of the bag.
Yeah?
Pull that one out of the bag, yes. And I want to say good evening to everyone, especially all viewers on social media where I monitor. I'm looking forward to the program this evening as well. I know that Mrs. Payne has a wealth of information. We just have to pull it out of her, and I'm looking forward to this evening's show.
Yes, indeed. I'm looking forward as well. Doc, I mean, listen, let me tell you, Tivoli drummers have a lot of clothes. I know that. Tivoli drummers have plenty clothes. So I don't understand you on this white shirt you have on tonight, you know.
As we actually looking white, but look at the background, eh? Well, let me just say hi and greetings to all our listeners. Scholar, you're looking good. Scholar, tonight you win the Grammy. You're looking good tonight. You come prepared. But Godfrey, behind me right here, this is red. That's a Tassa drum, eh? So you see how we're celebrating, right? And to my right here, that is what Miss Banfield do. That is actually a talking drum.
Yeah, talk?
So, a talking drum. That is what we call talking drum. We have green. So I have red, we have the green. I have a yellow. So
I thought you were going to mention the plants behind you, know, green. I thought you were going to mention the plant behind.
And then, of course, I would just like to say hello and welcome to my very, very good friend in more ways than one. You can read it anyhow you want to. Miss Gloria, Payne, Banfield, and I know we're going to have a really nice program tonight. So, guys, I'm looking forward to it. Educational and entertainment at the same time.
Yes, indeed. Mrs. Banfield, I ain't wasting any time. Earlier, sometime last year, we had you on and we were discussing a number of things, you know, all the way back from 1951, coming up when Mr. Gary came to Grenada and started making a serious impact. And things happened, and in 1967, I think it was, when he won the elections. And I think it's from there on we started hearing things about independence. But someone told me today that it was Mr. Blaze who actually started the independence discussion. Now, I don't know. So we are now depending on you to fill us in on where this thing started. Why was there a move, or why our leaders at that time, be it Blaze or Gary or whoever it was, why did they see a need for us to move in that direction?
Godfrey, first of all, I must correct something.
Mm-hmm.
I was introduced, I saw in an advertisement that I was going to be on the program, and I was described as a politician and an educator. I am not a politician. I did something in politics long ago. I retired. I resigned. I am not an active politician. I would prefer to be described as a historian.
Right.
Because I believe that history is what teaches us. What the past happened, what happened in the past, and to beware of some of the pitfalls that we encountered in the past.
Yes, indeed.
So people who study history always like to look back. And if you don't mind, I'd like to go back as far as Marichaud.
Sure, definitely.
T.A. Marichaud was one of the persons I would say was on the forefront of the struggle for independence. He started out with the struggle for adult suffrage. Adult suffrage being the right for every man and woman who reaches the age of 21 to vote in the general elections. And that we had in 1951. It was Marichaud and Donovan and those people, Fleming and all of those who were pushing for these things. Marichaud was also pushing for federation. And you could also see that the struggle or the idea of independence was nurtured from the time of the Moyne Commission. And that is in the 1940s. So when Mr. Moyne gave his results of his findings and all of that, the British government had to look up and start to take note. And then the procession started. We went to federation because they figured we could only be viable if we had a federation. A federated West Indies. But you know what happened to the federation? It was ill-fated. So we got federation in 1958. And by 1962, Jamaica was getting out of it. And when Jamaica got out, it was, there were 10 countries involved in this federation, 10 islands. And Jamaica had a referendum. But the people said they don't want to be in it. They said no to federation. And so they got out. And then Eric Williams in Trinidad said, well, when one is taken from 10, one does not get 0. One does not get 9, one gets 0.
Yes.
Meaning that, there was nothing left. But, of course, the other islands, you had the Little 8 and the Little 7 and all of that. And finally, they started to get independence gradually, one by one. So after Barbados got their independence, and Guyana, Mr. Gary, who was the premier at that time, the chief minister of Grenada, said it's time for Grenada to get independence. So you see, it was a progression. Grenada came in 74. And the whole thing leading up, I hear a lot of people talk about patriating the independence constitution, bring it into the people, and let the people make but this was not part of the tradition. This was not part of the tradition. With the people participating in our progression from colony to associated state to independence. The people were never involved in any of these constitutions. And so it was not unusual for them to go up to London and talk to the British government and come out with some results. And in this case, the delegation on the side of the government was Eric Gary, who was the head of the ruling party, the GULP, and also chief minister. By that time, he was premier. It was George Augustine, E.A. Helga, an attorney. Who else was there in that group? It was about 5 or 6 of them. And from Mr. Blaze, who was the leader of the opposition, from Mr. Blaze, he had a lawyer, an eminent Caribbean lawyer. I wasn't too sure whether he came from Trinidad or Barbados, but his name was Jack there. Bernard Cord was a member of Mr. Blaze's delegation. And he may have had John Watts there too, because John Watts at that time was head of the GNP. But what I'm saying is that both sides went up to Marlborough House in London and they discussed it and came back. What the British government told Mr. Gary from day one, if you want to have independence, put it on the next election, general election platform that you want to go independent, and let the people decide who they're voting for. Implicitly, if they vote for you, they're voting for independence. That was a story I heard. In the 1972 elections, that was put on the table, and Gary got 13 seats, and Carriacou and St. George's went to the GNP.
But let me ask, before you continue, let me ask this. We've heard talks that apparently the other side, Hubert Blaze and so, they were not in favor of independence. Now, I am looking for some clarification. Was it a case where they think or they thought we were not ready for independence, or they wanted independence while they were in office? What was it really?
Well, Godfrey, it would be foolhardy of me to say that they wanted it when they were in office. I think the question always comes up whether they wanted independence at all or whether they didn't want it under Gary. So it kind of is one of those, conundrums. You wanted independence, but not under Gary. I think that was it. And some people felt we were not ready for independence. But remember, the statehood constitution gave us the right to manage our own affairs. We were supposed to be able to deal with our financial affairs and our home affairs and everything that was local and domestic, while the British government was responsible for defense and external affairs. So it is my contention that we really wanted to have the whole hog. We wanted to have defense and external affairs and not be subjected to the British government having to tell us who to make friends with. You see that? And it follows that independence was a means to an end as far as I'm concerned, because if we didn't have independence, we could not have a revolution. Because if the revolution came in an associated statehood setting, the British government could have stepped in and said, no, we ain't having no revolution. We send on 2-man of war and we say, forget it. But we had independence, so we could have had a revolution. So in some cases, you have to say, thank God we had independence, because that helped us have a revolution, and we passed through that. And when we passed through that process, we grew up. We have independence. The Americans had a revolution too, and then they get the independence. They were a colony, 13 colonies. So it looked like it was a process that happens to most countries. We go through independence, we go through revolution, we back to normal. I say normal. And so we could move on.
Right.
We grew up.
Now, let me just allow the guys to ask a question quickly. We're going to take the break in about 7 minutes. So, Skulls, Reece, Livingston, any question you want to ask Mrs. Banfield at this point before we go to the break? Guys?
I don't have a question yet. I'm still taking it all in.
Well. It's not that question, but let me hear Scholar.
No, the question that I had was basically what Godfrey would have asked, and I don't think that in my mind I'm clear as to what this Banfield response to it really is and how she drilled down into it. But I've heard the notion as Godfrey saying, because oftentimes you have things that are happening, memorable things, but the truth is that sometimes the person who effected it may not have started with them. And when Banfield would have went back to marriage stroke and the like. But there is that notion out there that it was Blaze starting all of the conversations towards independence, and it really sort of ran with it, and it ended up with it. I don't know, and that was what I wanted to get into.
Okay, but okay. So before we go again, let me just ask this. Prior to that, while all these discussions were taking place regarding independence after the 67 election, we also get the sense that there was some uneasiness in the country. What were some of the things that was happening in the country at that time, Mrs. Banfield?
After the 67 elections?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't tell. I would say that the period 1967 to 70 was a period of calm.
Right.
Because in that period we had a governor who was a female, and first in the Commonwealth, first female governor in the Commonwealth, representing the Queen. That was Dame Hilda Bino. That was in 68. We had Miss World, Jennifer Houston won Miss World in 1970. And generally we had Expo 69 in 1969, of course. And we saw a period of I would say, a lull, almost a lull. It is in 1970 when the Black Power movement rose up in Trinidad that things started heating up.
Okay.
And that is when I understand Mr. Geary say, when your neighbor house on fire, wet yours. And
right.
That was when we started to have reports of police brutality and things like that. Because it was like taking in front and quelling any thoughts of Black Power. Because Trinidad was going through that. There also was a attempted coup in Trinidad. Remember that one? William Donovan was on his way to the airport and he came back and he saw ANR in his seat. You remember all that? So Trinidad being the big neighbor to the south, we always watch what happened there. And so he started to wet his house.
Not taking any chances.
And that is when he became so unpopular. And there was, I would say, the uprising started since then and led straight on to 74.
Okay, great. So let us go to the break. Livingston, let's go to the break because we're going to need some time to continue discussion. So we're going to take the break now. When we come back, you're going to go with your question and we're going to have some further discussion. So stay with us, folks. We'll be back with you in just a moment.
Get high making money moves with the NLA's new Aces High Scratch game with 4 chances to win. Beat the dealer's card to win the prize shown. Reveal an A symbol. And just like that, you are automatically a winner. Scratch away to win the top prize of $10,000. Win easy with Scratch. Must be 18 or older to play.
Viewers and listeners, welcome to the National Lotteries Authority's Daily Pick 3 Evening Draw for today, Friday, January 29th, 2021. I am Anisha Charles. With me this evening is Ms. Makiba Bain from PKF Accountants and Business Advisors, whose purpose is to ensure that this show is conducted in a comfortable manner and the game balls with industry standards and in no way tampered with. The cemetery tickets ready. It's Daily Pick 3. It pays to play. Good luck. First over this evening is check your tickets in the meantime. First number up is 8. Second number. Second number is 5. Third and final number. Final number is 2. And let's recap those numbers. Numbers on the screen. First number up is 8. The second, 5. Third and final is 2. So that's 8, 5, and 2. Congratulations, all winners. Stay tuned. Get your daily cash flow drop next. We'll see you soon.
Tick, tock, toe. I win.
Feel like a big kid again when you play NLA's new scratch game, Tic-Tac-Toe. It's instant cash on the go. Reveal 3 X's or 3 O's in the same row, column, or diagonally, and win the prizes shown, or as much as $5,000. Win easy with Scratch. Must be 18 or older to play. Tic-Tac-Toe, please.
Give me a tic-tac-toe, please.
Tic-Tac-Toe, please.
Welcome back, everyone, to another Daily Cash for Evening Draw for today, Friday, January 29th, 2021. I am Anisha Charles. With me again is Ms. Makiba Bean from PKF Accountants and Business Advisors, whose purpose is to ensure that this show is conducted in an accountable manner and the game balls with industry standards and in a way stamped with. The cemetery tickets ready. It's Daily Cash for more plays, bigger prizes. Let's find out what this evening's winning numbers will be. Good luck. This evening is check your tickets. First number up is 4. Second number is 6. Third number up. Third number is 3. Fourth and final number is 8. Let's recap those numbers. Numbers on the screen. First number up is 4. The second, 6. Third, 3. Fourth and final is 8. So that's 4, 6, 3, and 8. Congratulations, all winners. Stay tuned, get to play with you up next. We'll see you soon.
Win more with the NLA's Daily Cash 4. Every day with more plays and bigger prizes to be won. It's a 4-digit game with all the bet types you already know and much, much more. From 0000 to 9999. Choose your 4 numbers and place your bet from 11 different bet types. Choose from inline, 4 different mixes, first 3, last 3, and 4 different backup options too. Best of all, it starts at just $1, except for backups, which starts at $2. Win as much as $5,000 with a $1 inline bet and as much as $6,200 in a $2 backup bet. Imagine $50,000 for a winning $10 inline bet. There's definitely more to win with the Daily Cash 4. More plays, bigger prizes. Twice per day, Mondays to Saturdays. Must be 18 and over to participate. NLA, making your dreams come true while supporting sports, culture, and nation building.
Welcome back, everyone, to another Playway Evening Draw for today, Friday, January 29th, 2021. I am Anisha Charles. With me again is Ms. Makiba Bean from PKF Accountants and Business Advisors, whose purpose is to ensure that this show is conducted in an accountable manner and the game balls with industry standards and in a way stamped with. Let's play Playway, value your dreams in your way. Good luck. This evening's winning Playway number is, check it in the meantime. Winning player number is 15. Let's recap the number 1515. 15 represents the dream symbol lizard. Congratulations, all the winners of this evening's Playway draw. Tune in later on for the lotto draw. This evening we're playing for a jackpot of $62,000. We'll see you then.
I'm a winner. You are winner. We are winners. Winners.
It's the big one. Grenada. Imagine winning $25,000 and up to 6 times by scratching just 1 little ticket. Get your triple cash scratch tickets for a chance to live your best life. Win easy with Scratch. For just $3, match any of your numbers to any of the winning numbers and win the prize shown for that number. Reveal a money back symbol and win the prize instantly. Triple cash scratch. In stores now. Must be 18 or older to play.
Cause I'm a winner. From the moment that I get up, I'm feeling right.
The Food Fair offers quality foods at affordable prices. Now, with our improved web store, you can make all your purchases from the comfort of your home. It's so simple, easy to log in and navigate, safe and secure transactions, and a quick checkout. All your grocery needs at your fingertips. Convenient and reliable. Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
Kindly greasy pole, and we don't dance round the maypole.
Welcome back, folks. It's We Culture, and we're talking independence. Our special guest, Mrs. Gloria Payne Banfield. Also, we'd like to welcome our Facebook viewers, also our friends on the GBN YouTube channel. We welcome you all to the program this evening, of course, and we're looking forward to hearing from you as well, your comments, and so we're looking forward to reading them and sharing them with the rest of our listeners and viewers. So, just before the break, Livingston, I know you wanted to come in with something, so let's do that now.
Yeah, Godfrey, what I actually wanted to point out, and I agree fully with what Miss Banfield actually was stating, is that the general atmosphere after the Second World War was that countries that was not part of the First World started moving away, within Africa or the Caribbean. So this whole process of moving away was actually in the air. In Africa and the Caribbean, several countries were trying to assert their own identity. And I believe that what happened in Grenada was no different. When Gary came back, he came back with a mission to start to establish a kind of Grenadian identity, a Grenadian right. So when he came in 1951, his whole focus was to challenge that of the colonial power. I don't know where the rumor came from that Blaze started it, and I would not doubt that, but I'm just saying, to me, that general trust, Gary was anti-colonization, and his whole trust in terms of getting better wages, better working condition for the poor person, empowering fighting that kind of war, whereby the poor people start seeing the identity. That was his general trust. So in 1951, for matter of fact, I thought there was 4 main phases with Gary, where he showed that was his aim was towards independence. So in 1951, when he came and he led the strike, and then he was led onto the ship and negotiated, and when he negotiated that after Skyred, he got something right for the workers. That to me boosted his ego and his confidence, and again it empowers the trade union and the eventual formation of the GULP party. But again in 1955, when after Hurricane Janet, although Grenada was under colonial rule, what you find happening, a lot of the resources that was sent to Grenada was delivered directly by Uncle Gary. He went to make sure that persons get a board, and he made sure that the agricultural whole industry was resuscitated. But again, when Gary started having a female governor, general, when he again, example like in 1969, statehood, 1969, Expo. This Expo was not done as a Grenadian thing, no, it was done mainly as a regional. So other islands in the region actually contributed monies to Grenada. So Gary started feeling his sense of power. And again, with the crowning of the first black beauty queen. And remember, Uncle Gary was on that podium, on that stage in England, on the international arena. So he started feeling his power. So going to independence and taking it to the last hurdle, I think was a natural progression in all that movement that was happening before. But I think that is what actually come. There was these various steps that led to the independence.
Okay, Mrs. Banfield, anything you want to comment on what Livingston said?
Yeah, I just want to correct the notion that Gary started independence since 1951. He may have thought of doing it, but I don't know that there was any documentation to prove it. And to my mind, there's a difference between opinion and fact. To my mind, Marichaud was the one who started the whole thing about adult suffrage and ordinary people voting and ordinary people dealing with their own, what they call, sovereignty. So that in 51, Gary benefited from the struggle that Marichaud started. There was a demonstration in 1931 that my father told me about because I wasn't born then. And he said that there was a march from the market square up to Government House to protest certain taxes that the colonial government had put on the people. They had refused to let the band, the police band, play at the fort and at the gardens because the cost was too much. And they had placards like, "Music in our misery, give us the band." Then they had a tax on milk, and there was a placard, "Feed the babies, give them milk." And this was since 31. So Gary was still in Aruba, okay? And when he came back in 49, he started his brand of struggle through the trade union movement. But the thrust for adult suffrage, as far as I'm concerned, started with Marichaud and Donovan and Fleming and all these what I call heroes.
Well, yeah, I think this Banfield misquoted me because if you could go right back, the Trust for Independence, you could go right back and say from 1834, post-emancipation, you could say that I was saying that in 1951 that there was a natural progression. I never stated that he indicated that he was good.
Okay, Livingston. Let me just say this. I think where Miss Banfield is coming from, because if you go back, if you look at the history, for example, it was because of Marichaud's lobbying that the colony felt that Grenada was ready for constitutional reform, and that would have been between 1921 and 22. So a lot of the work was put in place. A lot of the foundation was laid by Marichaud, as a matter of fact. But I want us to move on from that. But just before we go, Reece, anything you want to chime in with here?
Well, yes. Zavid Seals, he is saying that looking through his window on the night of Independence, the carnage was all light with flambeau in long bamboo poles. And on the fort was the only place with electricity powered by a generator. The island was on strike. It's the most rice and peas I've eaten during that period from December 73 to February 74. He said that I have witnessed all the events from Bloody Monday to October 19 and 25th from my vantage point, my window overlooking the carnage. Yes, most of the folks are just basically saying good evening. You're listening.
All right. Skulls, anything you want to chime in with before we move on?
Well, let's move on because I think what we would have read there is a very good support for where we're supposed to put up because in really that area and who are being independent and so on. And independence was such a tumultuous kind of event and time, and I think this is what we need to build on.
Right.
I love this post listing that they had rice for the peas and all.
Rice and peas, the most rice and peas.
The most rice and peas.
Right. Mrs. Banfield, Mrs. Banfield, you mentioned the period from 1970 after Expo 69, and of course with the rise of the Black Power movement in Trinidad, that's when things started to happen. The move for independence then, because you did mention earlier that Mr. Gary was told that if he used the independence on his election platform, then it could be a good springboard to move in that direction. Tell us a little bit more about that and the events from 1970 to 74.
Well, as I said earlier on, from 1970, when that Black Power movement and the people in Trinidad tried to take over, Gary said he was going to wet his house. So he took in front and he had all the secret police and all the things watching out, and then the Jewel movement, which had started in St. David's, came together with movement for the Assembly of the People, and that was a Morris Bishop, and got together, the two of them got together, and they had formed the new Jewel movement. And that is when they tried Lord Brownlow, that in that period, in the Lassages Banfield, and police came and intervened and all of that, and there was this what I call this clash, not physical so much as the views that clashed between Brownlow taking over the right of way to the beach, and the people who said that they had a right to it. And Brownlow, of course, I would say, represented a form of colonialism, because he was from England or from Scotland, wherever he was from, but he was not from Grenada. And the two of them got together, and then they started to move together and do different things. When when the protests started in 1973, I would say the protests started about October, because after the beating of the New Jewel supporters at Bowler's Junction, protests started then. But there were a lot of rallies and meetings and so on, and they were stirring up people, particularly the youth, to protest against independence, and the trade unions took on the struggle, and they had a general strike. All the essential workers were on strike, especially the water, electricity, port. Imagine the port was on strike. There was no commerce going on, no boats coming in, because the Seamen and Waterfront Union had put the word out, don't send anything to Grenada. So we had no food. And you're talking about rice and peas. I want to tell you about banana, green banana. They used to call it open and bat. You open with green banana, yes. You close with green banana. That was the food of the day, and that we had a lot of. Because in those days we used to export bananas, and we couldn't export it, so we had to eat it. Things were really bad. Protests every day, every single day in after that event, and from November coming up, when at last in January, on January 21st, there was a march which ended in tragedy on the Carnage by the Seamen and Waterfront Workers Union, where the demonstrators I got into the building and were looking for protection, and Mr. Rupert Bishop was killed. And that ended it. Stopped. Everything stopped. But it didn't mean that we got back light. No. It didn't mean that we got back the services. Everything was at a standstill. And that's when the Duffus Commission was appointed. There was also a group called the Committee of 22, which involved the churches, the trade unions, and other prominent organizations, and they made up 22, and they were trying to negotiate some form of peace. But in the meantime, no boats came to Grenada, and no light went on in the night. And so it was what we call the crisis.
But let me ask also, the new Jewel movement, they now became part of the whole process. We know that there was some clashes between themselves and Gary's secret police. Did you say that they were basically mobilizing against independence at the time?
Again, it's sort of a moot question as to whether they were against independence or against independence under Gary. And I don't think they were against independence, but they were against independence under Gary.
So do you also think that some of the actions at the time, do you think some of the actions were in an attempt to sort of create uneasiness to sort of stall the process? And
oh yes, their actions were rife with unease and turmoil and dissension, and to give the impression that the people in Grenada were against having independence. It certainly was.
Okay.
But
I have a question.
Right.
It's I heard Mrs. Payne Banfield mention about the Black Power movement a few times, that there was this uprising in Trinidad, and this is when Gary talked about wetting your own house, that thing.
When your neighbor house on fire, wet yours.
Wet yours, right. Can you tell me what is it was the Black Power movement's motive? Like, what did that entail, that he felt like he had to wet his house? What did that whole Black Power movement consist of? Or what are the actions they were taking in Trinidad? Because I'm thinking it's the Black Power movement, in my naive self, it's Black Power movement. He's a black premier. You want to get away from colony and that sort of thing. So just explain to me what that was about, the Black Power movement.
Well, let us put it this way. There was a guy called Geddes Granger. I think he was a leader of one faction. There were different factions, but it was the whole business. It was a spin-off from the American Black Power movement, and in addition to that, I don't know whether they were together or they sort of got their ideas and came together, but the army, people in the army decided to have a takeover, and it was a failed coup. They tried something. Eric Williams was on his way out of the country, and when he got to the airport, something, I don't know, something or somebody or whatever, told him to go back home. Don't go out at this time. And it is claimed that when he came back and went to his office, his deputy was sitting in his chair. So the Black Power movement was not just about political power, but also economic and social power. I don't know whether you could directly say they tried to do the coup, but I know army generals were tried. Yeah.
Okay. Now, our telephone lines have been going. We need to go to the telephone. It's been going since we started. So let's see who's with us on the telephone. We Culture. Good evening. Hello. We Culture. Good evening.
Hello.
Yes. Good evening. Go ahead, please, caller.
Hello. Hi. Good evening.
Yes. Go ahead, please.
Yes. I must say it's a very educational program, and it is important for us to understand our history. Now, let me get quickly to the point. Our history is very colorful, and we tend to ignore our history, which is a very bad thing. We sometimes go over to the English and talk about Anglo-Saxon and things that doesn't concern us, and that is leading us astray. I want to ask Mrs. Banfield, the delegation which went to England with Mr. Gary, we are talking about people like George Hostin, Lauriston Wilson Sr., and other members of the delegation, what part did they play? Did Gary get independence single-handedly, or was he accompanied by other members of the government to assist him in getting independence? Give me a little clarification on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller. Thanks a lot indeed. Yeah, Mrs.
Yes.
Banfield?
The delegation included George Houston, who was the Minister of Finance, then Derek Knight, who was Ambassador at Large and really responsible for CARICOM affairs, but he didn't have a ministry, but he was an attorney. Lauriston Wilson, who was a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance, and E.A. Helliger, who was also an attorney. I can't remember anybody else, perhaps Carl Boxo, who was the assistant to the Premier, but it was about 5 people. And on the other side, the same amount.
Okay, let's go back to the telephone. We Culture, good evening. Hello?
Hello, good night.
Yes, good evening, caller. Can you tell us where you're calling from, please? Manoj, okay, go ahead, please.
Yes, what I want to talk about is, I just want to explain something. In that time within the 73, 74, in Trinidad, with the Black Power movement. The Black Power movement was a movement almost like what with the Jewel try overthrowing Trinidad in a way. But in those days was with Randall Burrows was the chief of police, and he was a very smart guy. And with the failure of the thing, they had some guys with a car like Guy Haywood and Stokely Carmichael. These guys run up in the hills and live because they didn't get through the coup. So the army went after them. So that kind of a scrap a little bit. But that came in the right time when Gary was looking for independence and the Jewel movement was swinging at that time. Because we as young guys, every one of us, because Bishop and them was with the Jewel movement, we all have to have a bracelet, a silver bracelet around the hand, or mostly with bend a fork or a spoon and it's in your hand. So in that time, he came in rightly there. We as young guys, we just started wearing jeans pants and black jersey because that was well matched. So we always used to lime around town with black jeans and black jersey. But within that time, Bishop and them was just coming in and splicing in. And then something started up there where there used to be a lot of string of fires in St. George's in the night. Where in where Marichaux College is there used to be a gym there. That gym had burnt. Then they said 2 fellas and they see some people in black run from there. Then you had the high school burnt. That was a thing. Then you had Gittins and fire. Every night there was a fire going on in St. George. Then the big Fentry store was on fire. Then you have Gittins. All these places will start burning on every week. There's a fire in town. So that string up a whole thing. And at the same time, Sir Gary went for the independence. So, but all this time the country was under strike. There was nothing coming in, no boats. They were using Otway House. That was the collecting point, as the lady said, that with all the provision, that is where all provision coming. So all who are in demonstration, when you demonstrate, you could collect. You're collecting your stuff, there is meat and whatever provision. And there was even no gas, nothing coming. So it's like, imagine when you hear a vessel come from Trinidad with 6 drums of gas in Grenville. All people from St. George's running up to get some gas. We used to have to mix gas and kerosene to put in cars to stretch it. There was a lot of things was happening, but I think what happened, Gary and the Bishop and them kind of used that era to go push out for Gary more. But it wasn't really about the independence. They used the opportunity to push behind Gary. And then you had the big demonstration, what Billy was talking about in with the Otway House there, with that turnout to what they call Bloody Monday. So Bloody Monday was one of the big events. And like the lead up to Bloody Monday now, the bishop and them had a big demonstration the Saturday, and then they plan to have one the Monday, but Gary calling his supporters in Mount Royal the Sunday, they had a meeting. And then what happened is, by Monday we get to know that he talked to his supporters to come out and break up this demonstration or whatever, and that is where hell break loose in town.
Okay, thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, we need to just take our final break. Let's take that and we'll come back and have some more discussion. Stay with us, folks. We'll be back with you in just a moment.
Kindly greasy pole, and we don't dance round the maypole.
With just $2, you can gift yourself with a chance to win the Lotto jackpot. Now, imagine winning the National Lotteries Authority jackpot of $62,000. Why pass upon this winning opportunity? Lotto, play and win a lot of money.
A pleasant evening to everyone. Welcome to the National Lotteries Authority's Lotto Draw number 3170 for today, Friday, January 29th, 2021. I am Anisha Charles. With me this evening is Ms. Makiba Bain from PKF Accountants and Business Advisors, whose purpose essential at this show is conducting in a fair and accountable manner. The game balls with industry standards and in no way tampered with. The semi-sure tickets at hand because we're about to play for a jackpot of $62,000. But first, your free ticket letter. Good luck. Your free ticket letter for this evening is check your tickets. Your free ticket letter is F as in Friday. Let's proceed for 5 winning numbers. Good luck. First number this evening is check your tickets in the meantime. First number is 34. Second number is 18. Third number up. Third number is 19, followed by 26, fifth and final number. Final number is 4. Let's recap those numbers. Check your tickets. First number is 34, the second 18, third 19, followed by 26, fifth and final is 4. So that's 34, 34, 18, 18, 19, 19, 26, 26, and 044. Your free ticket letter for this evening is F as in Friday. Congratulations to all the winners of this evening's Lotto Draw. Lotto, play and win a lot. When you play all the games of the National Lotteries Authority, support sports, culture, and the nation building. Thanks for joining us. Have a fantastic evening.
By now, you should know that the early bird catches the worm. So, what are you waiting for? Put wings to your feet and head to your nearest scratch seller. For every quick sevens scratch ticket you buy at $2, the NLA gives you 7 chances at winning as much as $7,000. Scratch the entire play area for your 7 chances at revealing as much sevens and win the corresponding prizes. Win easy with Scratch. Must be 18 or older to play.
The Food Fair offers quality foods at affordable prices. Now, with our improved web store, you can make all your purchases from the comfort of your home. It's so simple, easy to log in and navigate, safe and secure transactions, and a quick checkout. All your grocery needs at your fingertips. Convenient and reliable. Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
Kindly greasy pole, and we don't dance round the maypole.
Welcome back, folks. We Culture, the road to independence. Before we restart the conversation, Reece, any comments on Facebook that you'd like to share with us? Your microphone is muted.
Sorry about that. Yes. Burgess McPhee said, greetings, folks. Great program. Let our history be told and be taught in our schools. It's important we preserve our history. And Burgess is Paco, the Calypsonian. Curlin says, very informative discussion. Zavid is saying, around that time, that is when traffic in Trinidad became popular. That was how a lot of persons survived the strike. Jose Ernesto said, I would like to know who came up with the colors for the flag and what the colors were supposed to represent, because we had a previous one at the time. Yeah, I think that's well, there's Brian Lindsay that spoke of wanting to be part of the team that could talk about the struggle from 1969 to 1979 and from 1979 to 1983. I think you responded to him, Godfrey. Yeah, so that's it so far.
Right. So we continue. Doc, anything you want to come in with now? Microphone.
When we are looking at the progression, the real opposition to Gary, and probably before I go into the opposition of Gary, let me just say a lot of persons saw him as almost like a young messiah. The kind of goodies, the kind of goodwill that he brought to a lot of the common folks. So as I was saying earlier on, I think that is what had propelled him to give him that kind of impetus, that strength to go forward. But the real opposition started mainly around April in 1973 with the death of Jeremiah Richardson in Grenville, when he was shot point blank. Yeah, and that led to a major demonstration. For matter of fact, Paul's airport was closed for 2 days. Alistair Hughes was slapped, and 12 persons got shot in that demonstration at Paul's airport. So that was the first major, what you call insurrection or opposition to Gary's rule. And later on in June, on the 2nd of June, then you had in Victoria, a policeman shot one named Grumsby. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. And the schools, children in St. John's and St. Mark's came together and started demonstrating against police brutality. But I think then you move now to that meeting that was held in Grenville on this Sunday, what you call Bloody Sunday. And again, I think Ms. Banfield alluded to that and spoke enough about that when they went to Chimbola place and asked for rescue. And they gave them, you had that chance to come out. And if they don't come out by a certain time, the police promised to blow down the place. And the men was then shielded, bottles, etc., and all that. But I think by and large, what was happening generally is that there were two main sides developing and very, very strong. One group of persons saw Gary as the savior that brought all these good things to them. And they were prepared, as far as they're concerned, to save that or to guard that. And there was another group that saw Gary as an emerging dictator. And they were then prepared to fight Gary to the end. I think the Jewel, NJM, their role was not merely just opposing Gary for election, for independence. They wanted control. They wanted political power. So it was much more, their opposition was more than that. So the whole organization was propelled by the increase and what we will call almost unwanted or unplanned brutality that was dished out to a lot of youths. Some of the secret police, some of the men that was said to be close to the regime would randomly meet people on streets in Tongaton, Georgia, or in Grenville, or in Tivoli, and they would arrest, beat, or make them disperse for what reason whatsoever. And when a question was asked earlier on about the Black Power movement, and what was that whole take, guys, any guy that had Afro hair or wearing jean shirt or had an Afro shirt, anything like that, was put under the microscope and could at any time be brutalized by those men that thought that these were the group of persons opposing Gary. So I just wanted to add that to show, going towards independence, probably the mood of the country. As I said, some people got it with their life, the gains they got from Gary, and it was tremendous, Godfrey, a lot of the gains, a lot. Mm-hmm. And then again, a next group of persons who saw Gary and his supporters as henchmen.
Skulls, anything you want to come in with?
Well, not really coming. Those are things, and all that Livingston has been articulating are stuff that I've basically read before. So those things are not new to me. I've read them. They are points of view, and we have Miss Payne Banfield here, who seems to be offering more of eyewitness kind of, even though he might have been young at that time, comparatively. I mean, not like us little children and some who never was never born. One of the things that struck me about what Miss Payne Banfield would have said was that she was unsure as to what really it was. Were they against independence, or were they just didn't want independence under Gary? And my thinking, and I'm wondering, they must have had a message. They must have had a message. What the message was? It might have been a message that was hidden, that they were just putting in front, and they had the ulterior motive somewhere inside there that we just don't want anything under Gary. But what was it? That they were quick paused, and they were getting people to rile up and think to be so against independence, because this is what the history books are saying, that these people were against independence, but it doesn't say why they were against independence. And this is something I've always been interested in. What were they saying? What was the message at that time? We are against independence because, so I said, and that is what that's my main thing.
Right,
Mrs. Godfrey, just a minute. The opposition scholar with the death of Jeremiah or Bloody Monday or so was against brutality more than just opposition to independence. It was against the torture, it was against the random arrests, etc. of Grenadian folk, not just an anti-independence demonstration. For matter of fact, the anti-independence demonstration or protest was led mainly not by the NGA, but by the GNP faction. And
so Livingston, and how does this? No, I understand all of that. I understand all of that they were against the journey, and you could have spoken about a lot of the ills and so on, but how does that now translate into not wanting independence?
But as I said, I don't know, Ms. Banfield could probably give a word on that. The opposition to independence was mainly led by the GNP. The large demonstrations, I think, that was taking place in the country by and large was led by the NGM. So there was a different...
Let me just pop in before I go to Mrs. Banfield, because there is something here that there's a little disconnect. Now, Livingston, you're saying that the move against independence was mainly by the GNP. The NJM had a different agenda. But my question is, why is it that, because there's been a lot of stories about police brutality, but it seemed to me that the brutality was directed at a specific group. Now, there were three groups. There was GULP, there was GNP, and there was the New Jewel Movement. Why then was the brutality directed strictly to the New Jewel Movement, when in fact and in truth, based on what you're saying, the move against independence was from the GNP? But we've never heard any stories of brutality against the GNP.
But the GNP was a very conservative party. They went on the platform, they were opposed. But the mass demonstration in the island was organized mainly, even starting with Miss Gloria Banfield from Bromlow and La Sagesse, with the formation of Jewel or the NGM itself. It started with a sort of a trial people like us, Nasty and Teddy Victor and them being there when they tried Brownlow. But again, continuing is the opposition because they wanted to get political power. So these new fresh guys coming from overseas that were part of the NJM and had a similarity with Gedges, Granger, etc. with the Black War movement, they came to seize political power in Grenada. So they wanted political power. And their method of having rallies and agitation and demonstration, etc., they draw the wrath of the forces that was supportive of Gary. But the GNP, they wait until election come and they would, they would write letters and they would protest and they would go, etc. But that radical opposition to Gary was that of the movements of the NGM. So they, of course, they draw the wrath of the ticket holders.
All right, Ms. Banfield, I'm coming here. So let's talk a little bit about that. The difference then between the GNP and the New Jewel movement, because they were the other two opposition forces. Let's talk around that.
Godfrey, I tend to move on the side of Livingston's argument that the GNP was a conservative group and would not have radicalized the movement against independence to the point where they do certain things. But the NGM was a radical group and they promoted, in fact, I think they really led the protests through the streets prior to 21st January 1974. And it was also, they were the ones who did things to draw the attention of the Mongoose gang and the what you call the Night Ambush Squad and all these various groups that were developing in the interest of security, national security. The fires, somebody talked about the fire. The gentleman from Moulin Rouge talked about the fires. And there were a spate of fires between 70 and 74. The high school, the Anglican High School was burned down during that period, I think in 1972. The GIS section of the Government Information Services on Scott Street, some bomb was placed there too, but it was diffused. There was also a bomb at the Gardens. There were different incidents that would suggest that somebody was promoting something that was not necessarily in the interest of independence.
Okay, let's go back to our telephone. We Culture, good evening. Hello.
Hey, citizen, good evening. Greetings.
Good evening, caller.
Just briefly here. The issue related to whether or not Grenadians wanted independence and the excuses made or the pretext given then, whether they didn't want it under Gary or not. It is essential to consult the letter presented to the Marlborough Conference. Cannot remember if it was 72 or 73. My machine is out now. When Blaze presented a letter on the 17th of May, can't remember the year, I repeat, which stipulated crystal clear, and you know why I remember Godfrey a couple of years ago on George Grant's program here in this year, Grenada, a very important legal luminary and constitutional guru identified aspects of the letter, and this was stated, his own words. Right, written out before me right now. The protest was that we are committing an injustice to justify, an illegality to justify a legality. Why? Because Blaze's protest was that there was no referendum. It is in the letter, it is there. Check Francis Alexis and get that information. You see, we're spending a lot of things that we don't know about. I would like us to study the West Indies Act, Section 10, 1 and 2, subsection 1 and 2 and 3, how it was designed by the British government to grant independence to the territories. One, where we had the opportunity to two of the territories to present elections, winning 2/3 majority and a 2/3 majority in each one of the territories with 2/3 majority in a referendum. Gary failed to go. They allowed them to use subsection 2, where Her Majesty unilaterally wrote an order. That is why. No, they did not want to do it immediately, so they put 6 months in between, so that Gary will have an opportunity to present, which he did on the 12th and 15th of October, 1973, in both houses of parliament in this country, and that was used as a pretext to avoid the referendum. That is why we never got to independence. That is why the constitution that was handed to us was done so in an order and not an act. These things have to be clarified because it's written in the history. The Hansard is crystal clear. Thank you very much, Godfrey. Have a nice evening.
Thank you very much indeed. Mrs. Banfield, in based on what the caller is saying, and the issue of a referendum, could there have been a referendum at that time without a constitution? What would have given the referendum its authority then at that time?
Not only that, Godfrey, let us put it this way. We have had many constitutions since we started this colony in what year was it? The French took over. The French took over in 1649 to 1763, 1783. We had a treaty in 1763. They came back in 1779, 1783. They finally left. The French finally left. We had been French for over 117 years, a little over. And every time we got a constitution, we were handed a new constitution. When we got the new constitution with adult suffrage enshrined in it, nobody asked us if we wanted. Marshall and his colleagues were working for it, but as I say, every time we got one in 1967. Nobody asked us if we wanted a statehood constitution. So there was no tradition of referenda to ask us if we wanted a change in government. I mean, that's my way of thinking. Referenda has not been part of our tradition.
So because when you read the present constitution, this is where a referendum gets its teeth from.
It's validity.
Yeah. So this is what this is my confusion here, where the authority for a referendum that Mr. Blaze was making reference to then in that letter, where how.
Godfrey, when in the election of 1972. When Gary won by 13-2. If there was an application for independence, then does not signify a 2/3 majority.
But Gary was told that if he won by a 2/3 majority in that election, then this would go straight on to independence. That was my understanding of the 72 election. And by the way, I made a mistake earlier on when I said the second seat was St. George's. It really was St. Patrick's. The two seats.
Wellington Friday.
For the first time, GULP got the St. George's seat because J.N. Morris ran for the seat. But never in the history that we ever got GULP getting this town of St. George's.
Okay, let's go back to our telephone. OUI Culture, good evening.
Yes, good evening, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
And I must say, very good program, Godfrey. Take a tap.
Thank you very much to the team.
I'm just saying that in all the discussion, I like Livingston's word, progression. And I think that we should get a little clarity where it started, where the discussion on independence started, because I know Scholar was asking for that to be cleared up. And it's not about where it started, it's a progression over time, because it did not, if you search history, it did not start with Mr. Blaze, But Mr. Blaze was then the chief minister as the changes were taking place during the period of time. So when they were heading for us to get this independence, and we got statehood, and we stopped singing "God Save Our Gracious Queen," and we started to practice now to sing "Hope of Our Future," because the hope of our future was to get independence. So it was not. The question is not if it started with Mr. Blaze or if it started with Mr. Gary. Politicians are very smart, and they look for bus to jump on and ride in, and who could fool your bus. Now, another thing that I am not hearing is that class society had a big impact on the mood of the day. Class society. Hence, that provoked the Black Power, because, Godfrey, because you light-skinned, your job was waiting for you in the bank, whether you had subjects or not. And that kind of come now and caused rebellion. So the black people wanted power too, so they started their movement. And that movement did reach in Grenada, where we walking as young people, and when you meet you're calling each other brother, and you're saying Hail Star, and you have your Afro comb, your Afro picking, and people making a living by selling wooden earrings, and and you had clogs and all this thing. We started this Black Power movement. Now Mr. Gary saw that people were rallying around that, so he jumped in too, and he made a black queen. Now remember that all that was happening when beauty was the European look. So you had to be fair skin and have red lips and rouge and so on and so on. But Mr. Gary, to infiltrate in that group, because all politicians looking for followers. So he get into that group, and he made a woman, a dark-skinned woman with Afro hairstyle and a big Afro dress, win the Carnival Queen. So all that gave him popularity down the road. So I'm just saying we need to really put it in the context. Class society played a big, big role in provoking rebelliousness. Okay? I'm listening. I'm continuing to listen.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot indeed. Mrs. Banfield?
Godfrey, just an observation. And sometimes when the callers are talking, it is fluctuating. I don't know what is the issue.
Yeah, we have no issue. Yeah. But, Mrs. Banfield, you want to comment on the caller's contribution?
Well, I think it's a very important point she's making, because nobody in Grenada now talks about class as we knew it in those days. And I say that Grenada was riddled with what they call social stratification, and the criteria for where you fell in the range of classes was wealth and education and color of skin or shade of skin, shadism, family background, and where you're working, and a whole lot of things. And I think that the caller and I may have experienced this whole business of the class, the society which was stratified by classes, and so certain things wasn't expected of certain people. And I don't know if you ever heard this: if you're black, they say if you're white, stick around, or no, if you're white, you're all right.
White, you're right, and if you're black,
all right, and if you're brown, stick around, and if you're black, stand back. And that was a saying that we knew when we were growing up. And this whole business of class, I think, was very important to the historical milieu and what was going on in between the 40s and the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. After the revolution, I think the whole business of class got a little bit diluted. And so everybody was on first name basis during the revolution, and they sort of tried to get rid of the class differences. But still, the whole business of stratification in our society still exists. I don't want to start any kind of division and But there's certain places, I mean, where you live and your style of life and how many cars you have and all that sort of thing will determine which class you're in, you know?
Yes.
And it's not only economic and social, but it's also where you come out. And so I really don't, as a sociologist, I think it's something that we need to study. And whether this thing goes on still. But in the days of Gary and Marisho and all that, and class was very, very distinct.
Okay, let's go back to the telephone. We Culture, good evening. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening. Go ahead, please, caller. Hello. Okay, we seem to have lost that call. I'm not sure what happened there. But the number 435-2041. Reece, anything for us?
John is saying, what I observed, none of the panelists has a clue to the road of independence. That's John's opinion. Godfrey Augustine, well, you responded, I've just seen that. Jennifer Chateau says, scholar, very beautiful way. Zavid says that in my view, they did not want independence on Gary at the time. While Emmanuel is saying, good program, very informative. Yeah, so I believe that's it. That's it for so far, Godfrey.
Right. On from my end on the WhatsApp, someone is saying, remember Gary and his regime used to burn people's houses who spoke up against him and supported the GNP. Also, GNP supporters who had animals like goats, sheep, cows, those animals were stolen and slaughtered by Gary's regime to have their fetes and cookouts. I remember my dad's cow was a victim. Yeah. Scholar, you ever lose a cow? Scholar, you ever lose a cow?
Right. You know, you look at a cow a victim. But I wanted to ask a question.
Sure.
Because I've heard it said before. And all things I'm thinking is what I've heard. So I've heard it said before that independence was not as much of a big deal as we tend to make it out to be, because during that time, the English were actually happy to let go of Britain anyway. And so it did not take much really for that to happen. And I just wanted to ask Mrs. Banfield, what is her thoughts on that? Independence, was it a big thing?
Oh, well, it was a big thing for the people who were against it. Because the reason why they behaved like that was to try to get the English people to say, no, we can't give this country independence. There's too much turmoil, there's too much strife, there's no stability. And so the present chief minister or premier is a dictator. And we heard phrases like creeping dictatorship and all of that. So it depends on whether you wanted the dictatorship of a party, a man, or a revolution. Because it depends on much how you look at dictatorship. I don't know, but I would think that to the English they were trying to get rid of all these little specks of earth in the Caribbean. And they didn't really want to continue it. In addition to which, the United Nations has a committee on decolonization. And so they didn't want to continue having all these colonies. And if they could go peacefully without war, this would have been good for them. They didn't want to have another war of the American independence. You remember when the Americans and the British fought for for a long time, and it was a bloody battle. They didn't want to have these kind of battles to let them go, and they preferred to let them go, and then they started the Commonwealth. It was the British Commonwealth, and then it came to be just the Commonwealth. And the one good thing about the Commonwealth is that there are people outside of the Commonwealth want to join the Commonwealth because they think it's a good association of countries that speak one language and understand each other very well. So when they have their heads of government meeting, they all talk without interpreters and translators and all that because they all speak English. And that's what binds the Commonwealth together now.
I have a follow-up to this, as well. And just bear with me. Because I've heard it said tonight that and I think Reece had just read that somebody said the opposition forces, they were not against independence, but they just did not want it under Gary. And now that I've asked about whether independence was a big thing or not, and could it be that independence was a big thing and they did not want it under Gary, understanding that independence would actually give Gary much more power than he already had. So it would have made him more powerful, and that would have not added well because he was already flexing his muscles. So imagine what would have happened had we gained independence. Now the Prime Minister, we lose ourselves from England. And could it be from that standpoint that they did not want
Mrs. Banfield?
Well, certainly, as far as I am concerned, and there's a difference between opinion and fact. And I'm saying this is what I'm saying as my opinion. My opinion is independence was a big thing and is a big thing. It depends on how we look at it. Forgetting all the ancillary issues and so on. When you have independence, you become a nation. In the whole arena of nations, you are able to join the international community and be a voice in the UN. And you'd be surprised to know how small places like Grenada and Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, and all these countries, they are sought after. That vote that you have in the United Nations is so important. And these small countries, relatively, they're important.
Yeah. I listened to the scholar carefully, and I think there is something there, because if we fast forward a bit into more modern politics, you can see similar patterns where you have politicians wanting to hold on to quote-unquote big things and not allow another party or another government to be the one to implement. So I do believe that scholar has something there, because to gain independence, it's a big thing. I mean, let's take for example, look at how much, despite all what happened during the period 1979 to 83 under the People's Revolution, look how much emphasis is placed on our international airport. It is a big thing. So I believe, I want to side with scholar there. I do believe that there is something there, because whenever you have these major events, major projects, leaders are very guarded, because they want to be able to say, look, that happened under my leadership.
My gosh, yeah.
And it's a big thing for them. It's a big thing for them. Let's go back to the telephone. OUI Culture, good evening.
Citizen, I beg your humble permission and indulgence just to play a recording. It's a portion of the West Indies Act. If the recording isn't coming out too crystal clear, I'll cut it off. All right, listen well.
To make the West Indies
1967
Can you hear it well?
internal self-government to a number of our dependencies in the West Indies, while Her Majesty's government
Can you hear it well?
responsibility only for external affairs and
We're listening.
Associated States. As these dependencies became known, were given the power to terminate this relationship unilaterally in two ways. First, they could do so in association with another Commonwealth Caribbean state where two-thirds majority vote of the elect members of the legislature. Secondly, on their own by a similar vote followed by a two-thirds majority in the referendum. This was the procedure under Section 10 left parent 1 right parent of the Act. By subsection left parent 2 right parent, Her Majesty's government also had the right unilaterally to terminate association, but undertook not to do so without first giving 6 months notice.
Okay, caller, it's very difficult for us to hear it. Maybe you want to share it with us.
Well, that which I related a bit earlier in relation to gaining independence of the territories, that's where it was. I would like you, just for historical reference, to check in with the West Indies Act Section 10, subsection 1 and 2. I think the people of this country have to be very well acquainted with that before we go about making all sorts of continuing for it up in this modern time, these speculations of what happened back then prior to our independence, or so-called independence. Thank you very much. I'm very sorry that the recording is difficult to
Thank you very much indeed, caller. The number is 435-2041. Let's go back to our telephone. We Culture, good evening. So we lost that one. Guys, let's try again. We Culture, good evening. Yes, good evening.
Good evening, Godfrey and Livingston and my other panel discussers. What I'm saying is, I heard only this week we was discussing this with a few people and talking about the Mongoose gang and whatever. No, the Mongoose gang were people that was employed with the Ministry of Health. So they call them the Mongoose gang. But wasn't people that really was Mongoose people. It was just that because they employed it, so they call them that name. And they say Gary had loved these people because he have them now like radicals. So anywhere that he goes, he will carry them with him. And if Gary passes through the countries, he will see, maybe he'll pass and he see a nice cow, and he say, that cow looks good. He never tell the guys that to go and take the people cow, but he only make a statement. So you see, sometimes we say things and we does not really know what is the real meaning. So we have to get that clarified because sometimes we go with the wrong concept and other people take it into different meanings. And the other thing I have to say, I remember in the jewel movement, right? There was a guy they called Ralphie. No, I don't know if that the people was that he was employed with or moving around with. What he used to do, he couldn't go out and give papers to people for them to know what's going on in the jewel movement or whatever going on. So what he used to do, he used to have it in a 5 roses paper bag, and he just go and slip it under the door. So by that now, that is how people used to get information, some of the information, right?
Okay, thank you very much, caller. Thanks a lot indeed. Okay, 435-2041, that's the number to call. Guys, anybody wants to comment on some of the things that we heard so far from our listeners and viewers?
Well, there's Ernesto had asked a question about the national flag, and I had jotted some notes about it, and I think Mrs. Payne Banfield can assist us with that as well if I'm going wrong. But I believe that it was designed by Sir Anthony George of Solis. That's the national flag that we currently have from our independence. The only aspect that was kept from the previous one, I believe, is the nutmeg. That's the only thing, and that's what the nutmeg represents our main export crop. The colors, based on my research, is very Pan-Africanist theme. It represented the colors of Ethiopia, the red, yellow, and green. But each color, that's what I read, but each color denotes different things. For example, the green has to do with the lush vegetation and agriculture. The yellow, the sun, warmth, and wisdom of Grenadians. The red, harmony, unity, courage, and vitality. And the yellow stars and the red border had to do. And Ms. Banfield, what are administrative divisions? Because we were always told that the yellow stars on the red borders represented the 6 parishes, and that the one in the middle had to do with the Sister Isle. But I've read somewhere that the yellow in the middle has to do with St. George's. It represents the capital, and that the others. So maybe you can clarify everything that I've just said here. If you can just clarify for us.
Okay, I would like
the whole respect to the whole Pan-Africanist theme and all that.
Well, I don't know anything about this Pan-Africanist thing you're telling me. I know that the colors have a lot to do with I guess the Rastafarians, in fact, like it. The only thing that is not there is the black, and what they call it, ice, and that is really black. Black is the ice, but we don't have the black. So when some people tell me that our flag is ice, green, and gold, I tell them rubbish. There's no ice in our flag. That's the first myth I want to dispel. And okay, there's no yellow in our flag either.
Right.
It's gold.
It's gold.
And in order to I have the, I don't know if you could see this.
Yes, we can.
This is the act that talks about the emblems, the national emblems of Grenada. And the emblems are the flag, the coat of arms, the motto. They have a list. National emblems mean the coat of arms, the national flag, the national flower, the national bird, and any of the national colors when used together. There was actually little leaflets about the meaning of the colors. And I distinctly remember that red represented the burning aspirations of the people to be free. I never forget that sentence because it was so, the burning aspirations of the people to be free. The green is agriculture, and the gold was, I can't remember right now what the gold meant.
Do you have anything to do with the sunshine?
It has to do with the sunshine and the warmth of the But first of all, let me tell you this. We heard that Mr. Anthony George designed a flag because he went to the Prime Minister to say that he had designed it. At the time that the flag was promulgated, I didn't know anything about Mr. George designing it. Sir George is a member of a committee, one of the committees. And surely, I don't know what happened. There must have been a glitch somewhere that he wasn't given up. 33 years afterwards, he was identified as the designer of the flag. What people like to talk about who designed this, and the last one I heard was who made up the motto. And in those days, we weren't really looking at who did what. There was a committee, a big committee of people who were virtually uprooted from their civil service positions and sent to work in a place called Knights Inn. Knights Inn was a hotel on Grand Anne's Beach, and it was at the entrance of the place we know as Umbrellas now. And you had 7 distinct areas of work. There was, because I remembered I was in the cultural division and I coordinated culture. And culture included drama, singing, dancing, national independence, Calypsonian, Queen. It was about 7 areas. You had agriculture, you had sports, you had documentation and history, because the people who were in documentation and history wrote a number of books, and those books and pamphlets could be found at the National Museum. I gave my collection to the National Museum. Where they are now, I don't know, because I don't even know if the museum is still a museum. But the fact remains is that there was a committee that did all these things. When the flag and the coat of arms were being decided upon, drafts of those things were sent to the College of Heraldry in London. And that is when we knew what would be acceptable. And the College of Heraldry, they vet all these coats of arms and flags and so on. And if you get them passed, then the international community knows that every ship that comes in the harbor has a Grenada flag on it. Flies a Grenada flag. Where they get it from? Out there. They don't ask us for it. They have it because a flag represents a nation. So once we sent our drafts to these people, then they sent back and said what was acceptable. And in the case of the flag, it came back just as it went. But in the case of the coat of arms, there were some changes, which we had to accept, the changes that they...
Okay, let's go back to our telephone. We Culture, good evening. Hello? Hello? Okay. All right, 435-2041. Let's try the telephone again. We Culture, good evening.
Hello?
Yes, good evening. Go ahead, please, caller.
Yeah. After independence, when we get independence, Britain promised us some monetary fund. Did we get it? I can't remember. Mr. Banfield could answer that.
Okay, thank you very much.
What was the question? After independence? He
said after independence, the British promised us some money. You want to know if we get that?
Yeah, but the money wasn't going to be a part of money that they hand to you. You know, the money was allocated to different projects. And yes, it wasn't a lot of money either. I can't remember the exact amount, but it was put into projects. And we did get it.
Okay, let's try the telephone again. We Culture, good evening. Hello? All right. We seem to be having some issues. I'm not sure where or what is the cause of the problem. Let's try again. We Culture, good evening. Hello?
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm just making a little...
Yeah, make it quickly, caller. We're almost out of time.
Ms. Banfield is there, and I think some of the things that the people are saying, I think Ms. Banfield... Hello?
Go ahead, caller, go ahead.
I'm saying some of the things that the people are saying are what the comments they're making. I think Ms. Banfield was such an active person in that government that she's laughing. Because they're saying a lot of strange things that's not supposed to be there. Okay, but one of the things is, Mr. Gary, in a meeting he had said, look, if you take a company from scratch and build it up, and someone coming to take it over, wouldn't you try to defend it? That is one of the things he had mentioned. But then you had seen the Mongoose gang, we had seen the Green Beast, which was a defense force, and then you had the secret police. So all of these things, but something I heard about this Mongoose gang used to work in the Ministry of Health. That is something very strange. The Mongoose gang is something way off, right? And then we had, the lady could remember when Mr. Gary was making the first Governor General, Payne of Bino. They had a problem with that. But all these things are history of Grenada. So some of the things they're saying is not really true. People is making up a lot of things. People have to get the facts.
Okay, thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much indeed. It is just about 7 minutes under the hour of 10 o'clock. Team, any comments that we want to make? Doc?
Godfrey. Dame Hilda Bynum was never a governor general.
Yeah.
She was a governor. That was before independence. Okay?
Right. Mm-hmm.
The first governor general of Grenada was Sir Leo de Gale.
Yes, indeed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Guys, Doc?
Yeah. Actually, the concern was raised earlier on as it relates to the whole issue of class. And I must say, the very fight for independence was a fight against classism and to a certain extent racism. The empowerment of the poor people on the estate, the increase of the wages, the fact that they got land, the fact that many persons got scholarship to Guyana to study. There was nurses' aid and hospitals being built and put in complex, etc. This led to a sort of reckoning by the poor people that they are as good as or equal as those that oppress them. And that for me was one of the era that signaled the greatest fight against classism in Grenada. So independence was this continuous fight for self-identification, self-assertion. And so I think we have to take it. The road to independence, propelled by Eric Gary, was the road where we wanted Grenadians to feel a self of their own self, their own identity, their own culture, and to express it that way. And just one note: independence is more psychological than just an economic transfer of wealth or resources. And the only person I know that sit at the helm of our government that was very much or intimately related to the culture of the people was Eric Gary. And so he was loved in that way. He was the only one that used to go around the drum and the dance and do this kind of things with the people. And he encouraged all the artwork. And so independence was that time, that movement, that era where we were trying to assert and find our footing in the international arena.
Okay, cool. Skulls, a microphone.
I want to make 2 points. So one of them very humorous, really. Someone would have said to me, you remember somebody said that they made the point that Gary used to take the people cow and kill the people cow and feed the people. And he said he called his father cow was a victim. And there's a story that Gary had said he had a man, he had one little bull. And Gary said, "Oh, bull." So when the man realized by one little bull, he tell them people, go back and tell Gary the bull fool.
I've heard that story before.
He can't go and say, well, tell Gary I don't give him a bull. So you have to make up. One of the things that I just wanted to point out this, and to make the point, and maybe this is something that we can discuss a little later on, that we've discussed all of the Black Power movement and how it would have shaped what happened on the road to independence and so on. And there is that fact that though we gained independence, so many of the vestiges of our colonial past remain. The Governor General, the Royal Grenada Police Band, Princess Alice days, Queen Elizabeth days, and so on and so forth. And we are seeing now another Black Power kind of movement rising in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, which is spreading and taking hold of around the world. And what it seems to be indicating, and I think Al Gill would have had an excellent article on this a couple of weeks ago, what it is kind of indicating to us is that the time has come to let go of all of the let it go once and for all, to be truly independent. And so we've seen Barbados make a move. They have taken down the statue, and they have moved to. So this is something that we can discuss, because maybe we still have a lot of streets and so on. Heaven knows who these people are. Scott Street, and who was Scott, and maybe it's time to reinvent ourselves and to really look at naming our things based on our own Grenadianism and our own Grenadian experience and so on. So we may have a Miss Banfield Street or something or the other, you may never know. And then he also pointed to the fact that you had a lot of schools and so on that were named after places in Grenada. St. Mark's Secondary School and Happy Hill and all of it. And you have to think that a lot of these, the St. Mark's and the whatnot, came also from our colonial past. Those were where the names came from. And so this is another fulsome kind of discussion that we can have as to independence, and how is it that all of this Black Lives Matter thing can culminate into us really and truly gaining independence, getting rid of the Governor General, who is the Queen's person in Grenada, and so on and so on.
All right. Reece, anything you want to comment? Reece, are you hearing me?
This is sleeping, Godfrey.
No, all right.
Sleep.
Yeah, I think yeah, her video has stuck. All right.
Still on my screen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what happened. Yeah. I have a question for Mrs. Banfield. In terms of around the time when independence was being negotiated and all of that, was there ever any talk about reparations, about compensation for the colonies?
I think that there was some sort of discussion about what they call it, the package, the economic package.
I know you spoke about projects, but was there ever any regarding independence?
Well, it was an independence gift, but it was very small. The money that was put aside for the independence gift, the cutting loose. So you can't really identify any particular project that you could say that was an independence project. I don't know of any. But on the matter that Scholar raised about letting us break loose from all this Her Majesty's prisons and all of that, Royal Grenada Police Force and vestiges of colonialism. I think that you have to be very careful what you get rid of. You don't want to get rid of cricket, and that is so very British. And you don't want to get rid of tea. Every harvest and every activity related to fundraiser has a tea. Now the tea came from the British heritage. There are lots of things that are still important to us, like the legal system, which is also from colonialism, the education system, and we have to be careful. It's not only those institutions, but there's also things that the ordinary people like. As I said before, the fete matches are very important to village life. So when we break it loose, we must make sure that what we're doing is truly Grenadian. And so to me, this period from 1974 to now, we should be looking for the Grenadian person, the Grenadian man and woman, and what the best, the finest things that we have in our society today. I mean, I am a protagonist of Grenadianism. Even the way we speak, we must make sure that it is Grenadian. The one on Creole, this program last week on Creole was very good, extremely good. And the funny thing is that, you know, the way we use we, even we culture, you're really saying yes, culture, yes, culture. But yes, we, that's what you're saying. And young people today say we. I like it, we. They don't know where it come from. They don't know that we is out of the French culture. Yes, it means yes. So, you know, all these things, don't put them aside. They're part of us. They have been inculcated in us.
Yes, indeed. I agree. Yeah. A lot of these things has helped shape our culture, who we are over the years, and of course the journey continues. This journey we started, we have to continue next week. However, though, folks, let me just say that next week's program will be held on Thursday, because next Friday will be the Independence Calypso competition, and we will be bringing that competition live on our platforms. So we do not want to, you know, steal that from people. We want the Grenadian people to view it, and so we will have our We Culture program next Thursday, one time only, to accommodate the Calypso competition on Friday of next week. Of course, I remind you throughout the course of the week. I want to thank you very much, Mrs. Banfield, for accepting the invitation to be here with us again to discuss independence. I learned quite a lot. Wonderful discussion. Scholar Livingston, I thank you guys very much. We look forward to next Thursday when we continue from independence, February 7, 1974 onwards, to see where we, you know, what has happened between then and now. So we continue discussion next Thursday at 8 o'clock right here on GBN TV, K105, our Facebook page, and our YouTube platform. Thank you guys, and have a good night. All the best.
Good night.
Good night.
Yes, indeed.
Good night, Godfrey.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone, folks. Thank you for staying with us. We thank you for all your contributions. It was indeed a pleasure hearing from you. As I said, we continue this discussion next Thursday at 8 o'clock, so we can accommodate the live airing of the Calypso, that's the Independence Calypso competition. Thank you, and do have a good night, and do enjoy your weekend. All the best.
Greasy pole, and we don't dance from the maypole. Raise it high up the ladder, let we set it on fire. A little more calypso, forget the funk and the disco.